there's just one more thing that I wanted to talk about, and that's that I think that too often people underestimate the danger faced by WikiLeaks sources. And I've seen this week some people I describe as unsavory, um, discounting the idea that any WikiLeaks source could ever be murdered or come to any physical harm, as if everything's okay. And so I wanted to take you guys back in time to before Collateral Murder, to several years before Collateral Murder, because while Collateral Murder made WikiLeaks famous, it was not the first WikiLeaks revelation that put a source in serious danger. And by that, I mean, in Manning's case of having been ratted out by the FBI informant Adrian Lamo, and then having been held in a military prison and tortured. I want to talk briefly about Kenya. And I think that the best thing I can do is to read directly from the WikiLeaks statement about the matter, because this is the first known confirmed event where WikiLeaks sources were assassinated for their work with WikiLeaks. So I'm going to read from this press release by WikiLeaks. It's on their wiki, March the 8th, 2009. On Thursday afternoon, Oscar Kamo Kingara, director of the Kenyan-based Oscar Legal Aid Foundation, and his program coordinator, John Paul Ulo, were both shot dead at close range in their car less than a mile from President Kibaki's residence. The two were on their way to a meeting at the Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights. Both had been investigating extrajudicial assassinations by the Kenyan police. Part of their work forms the basis of the Cry of Blood report that WikiLeaks released on November 1st, 2008, and subsequent follow-ups, including a UN indictment last month. Since 2007, the Oscar Foundation has documented 6,452 enforced disappearances by police and 1,721 extrajudicial killings. The murders come just 2 weeks after United Nations Special Rapporteur on Extrajudicial Killings, Professor Philip Alston, called on Kenya's Attorney General and Police Commissioner to be sacked. On 18th of February 2009, the Oscar Foundation presented its findings for use in a parliamentary debate. The Oscar Foundation vehicle was blocked by a minibus and a Mitsubishi Pajero vehicle, both of which had been following them along State House Road. Several men were in the two vehicles. Two men got out, approached the vehicle of Oscar Kamo Kingara and John Paul Ulo, and shot them through the windows at close range. According to eyewitnesses, the driver of the minibus was in a police uniform, while the other men were wearing suits. The closest eyewitness to the incident was also shot in the leg and later taken away by policemen. A coalition of civil society organizations have released a statement blaming police for the murders. These were very decent men who had done more work than anybody in examining police killings, said Cyprian Nyamwamu, the executive director of the National Convention Executive Council, an NGO advocating social and economic reform. I have no doubt that this is why they were killed. And the statement continues, and I'm just going to share the screen here for a moment, and you can see this is photos of the men and of the killing and the scene of the killing. And this is the WikiLeaks press release. WikiLeaks then was raising funding for a reward for the conviction or apprehension of the assassins and those behind them, and had established a special fund to do so. Now, being that this is 2 years, more than 2 years, prior to the Pentagon manhunt and the FBI and DHS storming the Hope Conference in NYC, hoping to track down and arrest Julian Assange, you get some idea from this of the severity of the danger faced by those who worked on releases like these. And you also start to get an understanding that WikiLeaks wasn't just revealing information about people killed in Iraq and Afghanistan and war zones. They were shining light on extrajudicial killings around the world. We know that they have in Latin America, and here they had in Africa. WikiLeaks was indiscriminate in its revelations of injustice, regardless of where that injustice originated from. And so I just wanted to make that point. So when people mock the idea that WikiLeaks sources or that WikiLeaks themselves and WikiLeaks associates are severely targeted or endangered, I think that this quite viscerally shows us the reality of the situation, that even before WikiLeaks was a household name, people who were associated with shining light on injustice through activities with WikiLeaks were paying for it with their lives. And that's all I wanted to bring to your attention tonight. I'll hand it back to you, Joe.
No, I think that's that's an excellent point, and it's interesting that Mueller in his report makes this whole issue that Julian Assange brought up the Seth Rich only in order to throw off suspicion from the true culprits, namely the Russians. Now, of course, Mueller has no idea what Assange was doing, since Mueller never bothered to go interview him. So, this is amazing, his ability to read Assange's mind. But also, Mueller was just operating on the assumption which was provided for him by his pal Comey, who in turn was informed by CrowdStrike, exactly. So CrowdStrike provided them with that info about the that it was all the Russians who hacked it, and the FBI just said, yeah, cool, we accept all this. And Mueller also said, yeah, cool, we accept it. And Mueller says this in his report. He doesn't he's not ambiguous about this. We did no investigation of our own. We just simply accepted what the FBI told us. So all this stuff about, it can't possibly be Seth Rich, and what are these terrible Seth Rich conspiracies? Well, you'd have to assume that Julian Assange is lying. He doesn't have a terribly good track record on lying. I mean, he's never been caught out on a lie. So to say he's lying, then you got to prove. Has he ever lied about anything? I don't know of any case.
Pat Comey also testified under oath that they believed, that the FBI believed, that Assange had emails from Russia through an intermediary, cutout as they use in the intelligence trade. That means that Assange would not have known that Russia had hacked the emails. If in fact it was this cutout, they wouldn't send a Russian cutout there. If they didn't want Assange to know what the origin was, they would have sent somebody else, maybe an American, who knows, to give him the emails. So also, it says in the Mueller report that Guccifer 2.0 and DC leaks that Mueller contends were front names for the GRU, the Russian intelligence, communicated with Assange, and they did, and sent these files, and they gave a file name, but no forensic evidence to back it up, sent these files to Assange. How would Assange know, if this, assuming all that's correct, how would Assange know that Guccifer 2.0 and DC leaks were fronts for the GRU? 2.0 said he was a Romanian hacker. Maybe that's what he...
It's totally irrelevant, because I'm going to share with you a timeline that was pointed out today. Julian Assange's first public statement, it certainly wasn't the first private conversation, but the first public statement that they would be publishing information from Hillary Clinton was on June the 12th. The Guccifer 2 persona didn't exist until June the 16th, and Mueller says that the first communications were between WikiLeaks and Guccifer 2 were on the 22nd of June 2016.
Right.
So WikiLeaks had already confirmed that they would be releasing information on Hillary and the DNC prior to the existence of Guccifer 2 and prior to the existence of any communications between them. But the DNC leaks were actually foreshadowed by Kim.com in, I believe, either November or December of 2015, which was the subject of some controversy, as some people felt he shouldn't have been discussing that when he did. But actually, there was discussion for months and months prior that something was coming on Hillary and the DNC long before Gusev 2 was ever dreamed up. And I'd just like to point out one other interesting fact is that Sean, what's his name? His name escapes me at the moment. It was the ex-assistant director for the FBI who left the FBI and became the senior executive at CrowdStrike, was the handler, when he was at the FBI, was the handler of Hector Sabu Monsegur, who's one of the most disgusting people on this planet. It's an FBI snitch who is responsible for the jailing of Jeremy Hammond, the hacktivist who supplied WikiLeaks with the GI files. So FBI agents who had been going after WikiLeaks and WikiLeaks sources and associates in their career at the FBI then transitioned to the private sector and continued activities to discredit and stitch up WikiLeaks.
Well, those are great additions to what I was saying, Suzie. That is a third and a fourth reason why, well, the third one, as you point out, that Julian said that on June 12, 2016, in an ITV interview in London, that they had emails on Clinton, and then Gusev shows up later by Mueller's own timeline. So those are three examples of why there's no way Julian would know, if it were the Russians, and there's huge doubts that there was the Russians that hacked it. It could have been a leak, as the VIPs say. There's three reasons why Julian would not know that it was the Russians, if it were indeed the Russians that gave him the emails. And yet, of course, this is only being discussed here on Unity for J Vigil, not on MSNBC, last I saw.
Right.
Alistair,
and not by Mueller. And there, I'd just like to point out that the best source for information on this topic is Julian Assange. There is a video here I have tweeted out. I'll show you my tweet so that you guys can go and look it up. I've said this is the smoking gun video from 2016. Full interview of Julian Assange with Afshin Rattansi on going underground inside the Ecuadorian embassy. The Mueller investigation has falsely been conflating three separate DNC breaches as being one: the Russians, Gusev 2.0, and WikiLeaks, but they were separate penetrations all along, as Julian Assange explains here. Now, in that video, Julian says he does believe that the Russians had penetrated multiple political parties in the United States, and that is a matter of due course, that this is essentially their job, as is the job of every intelligence service, and certainly, as we've seen, the US and the Five Eyes have done in multiple elections. We've literally seen the dispatch orders for the espionage orders for Five Eyes agents to do that. Snowden also said, when Snowden was first asked about Russiagate, Snowden said, well, this is the job of these agencies. Their job is to penetrate foreign, anyone who's of influence in the politics of foreign countries. What Julian says is he believes Russia did penetrate it, but that it had absolutely nothing to do with WikiLeaks releases, that WikiLeaks source was not the Russian government, that it was completely unrelated, how they'd sourced their material. And he also says that the Gusev, he confirms that the Gusev 2.0 was not the material published by WikiLeaks.
Right. That was even pointed out in a New Yorker article. Sorry, I just knew that, in fact, Gusev 2.0 really didn't have very much material. So the stuff that Gusev 2.0 just released was just a load of crap. I mean, so therefore that was just just a red herring.
I want to add one thing.
My recollection at the time was that
just one more point about Julian Assange's motive in releasing the DNC and Podesta emails. What he said was clearly to uncover the corruption in the Clinton campaign. If that were accepted by the DNC and by Hillary Clinton, I mean, then where would they go with that? They would have to admit that they were corrupt. And in fact, the resignation of Deborah Wasserman-Schultz as the head of the DNC and others showed that the releases were true. So what they had to do was they had to blame it on Russia, because they had to smear Assange by saying he had dealings with Russia. Otherwise, they would have to accept the real motive that Assange has laid out, which is the truth, that he was just trying to expose their corruption.